Hi, good evening, and welcome to our third and final presentation for the week, where we're hearing and learning a lot from our fisheries biologists all around the state. Tonight, we are going to be focused on the southern half of the state, and we're focusing on District 5 and District 6. Soon, we will talk about which counties that covers. And in case you missed it, we did cover the other two regions, or four regions, I guess, of the state in the last two nights. So if anybody was interested in watching those presentations but happened to miss them, those two and this one will be on YouTube within the next couple of weeks. So you can rewatch them as needed to catch up on any resources you might have missed and to share with folks. I should probably back up and start by saying that my name's Mariah. I'm going to be hosting tonight, and we've got a co-host on here as well, Ethan, who's going to be helping behind the scenes. And then we're going to be hearing from the supervisor of the fisheries team for tonight, Sandy, and then two of our district biologists. So all that will be coming here very shortly. But I just have a few quick housekeeping things before I turn things over to Sandy. So as you all probably saw in the event description, this event does have the ability to be interactive. So we have a question and answer feature here. If you look at your toolbar, you'll see two chat bubbles. Excuse me, and that's for your Q&A. So the one that has two bubbles says Q&A on it, and if you click on that, you'll be able to post all of your questions throughout the presentation tonight. And then near the end of the presentation, we will pull from those questions and get to as many as we possibly can and let our biologists answer those directly. So please go ahead and use that throughout as questions come to your mind, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. We'll also be sharing contact information for our biologists tonight. So if you don't get your question answered, or if you're thinking on something after the fact, you can reach out and start that conversation later. Additionally, if you enjoy using closed caption features, Teams does have that as an option under the More Settings tab. So if you'd like to see auto-generated captions as we go along, you can turn that on. And then just as a note, in case you did watch the last couple of presentations, the very beginning of this, when Sandy is speaking, she's going to go over some of our resources. That's going to cover some similar material to what you heard last night and the night before. But fear not, all of the information past that point will be district specific to the South. So make sure that you are tuning into that section. And I just wanted to let folks know that because some of the resources are used statewide. So that'll be shared again. Let's see here. I think with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Sandy, and I will be posting resources in the Q&A as well that you all can look at. So make use of that feature, and Sandy, take it away.
Thanks, Mariah. I just want to start off tonight by talking about our funding source. Fish, like all wildlife, need great habitat to thrive. Conservation work that promotes healthy fish populations and their habitats is funded through the sales of fishing licenses and federal excise tax collected for fishing on. This tax is on fishing equipment and boat fuel sales. These taxes are then distributed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back to each state. So thank you all anglers for supporting conservation in Indiana and help supporting our mission to make fishing better in Indiana. So just an overview of tonight's presentation. I'm going to generally talk about what our fisheries staff do, and then share with you some helpful resources from our websites. Tonight, we're going to be talking about District 5 and 6, which cover about the southern third of the state. And so once I cover these topics, I will then turn it over to the District 5 fish biologist, Ethan Benkowski. And then once Ethan is done, he will hand it off to the District 6 fish biologist, Andy Beltman. And they're going to cover some of the work that they've done last year and this year, some of their projects that they're really excited about and want to share with you, a lot of the habitat work that we are doing in the southern part of the state on our reservoirs. We do have some research projects, and then actually we've been out sampling, so they're going to talk about some of the things they've seen in the last couple of weeks while they've been out sampling, and then kind of some tips and tricks of where to go and what fisheries are really looking strong. So what do fish biologists do? Our job is to monitor the public water resources within the district. District 5 and 6 encompass 18 to 20 counties across the southern part of the state, and that includes all the major reservoirs like Lake Monroe, Patoka Lake, a lot of the urban ponds that are in Terre Haute, Evansville, New Albany, Bloomington area. The southern part of the state also has a lot of unique resources, as this was old and active coal mining, surface coal mining, and some of the remnants of that coal mining is strip pits. And these are a really unique feature because they are very deep and have some really interesting water chemistry that allows us to provide some really unique fishing opportunities. And then we also obviously have some rivers. We do have a big rivers biologist, Phil Kackmeyer, and he covers the Ohio and Wabash River. But we do work closely with Phil on the management of those waters because they do border both District 5 and 6. So what are we doing when we're out there monitoring? Mainly, we are looking at the fish communities, and we do that through a variety of ways. But we also look at water quality and aquatic vegetation while we're out there doing those. So this spring, we've been spending a lot of time doing what we call our targeted survey. And this is where we are actively looking for a specific species, and we are using equipment that is best or most effective to collect that species. So in March, our biologists were out, Andy and Ethan were out doing crappie survey work in March. We're now in the middle of our black bass survey, which includes largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass in our lakes. And so Andy and Ethan will be able to talk to you about, Andy is going out tonight, so the work never stops. We also will do targeted surveys for sauger and walleye, and also hybrid striped bass. And then other times we might be looking at the entire fish community. And we do these through using multiple gear types or equipment to sample all the fish in the system. So we are not only just looking at, species that anglers might target, but also looking at the prey species that those fish are eating. We also like to know what anglers are fishing for, what they're harvesting, and are they having success? And we do that through angler creel surveys. This is where we have a person standing at the boat ramp who will interview you after you have completed your fishing trip to get information. We have a current creel survey going on at Patoka Lake, so you might run into our clerk there and hopefully have a nice chat with them about having an excellent fishing trip. From that survey data, we make stocking recommendations. So if we're seeing, our fish condition, fish looking skinny, we may reduce stocking. If we're not seeing good recruitment, we may increase those stockings. And so a lot of the survey work feeds into some of our stocking stuff. Also, we do a lot of aquatic habitat enhancement projects. Ethan and Andy will definitely highlight those. We do have the largest reservoir in the state within our district and our region. And so as those reservoirs age, habitats declined, we're working to add back in habitat. We also assist with broodstock fish collection. And so this is for species that are not naturally reproducing. So our walleye, muskie, and salmon, if we do not stock those species, they would not be here. And so from our hatchery programs, we also stock some native fish like largemouth bass and bluegill. In certain instances, we have adult fish on hand. They do the process in a pond, really no human intervention. For things like walleye and muskie, we actually go out and collect wild fish, harvest the eggs and milt from them on site, and make eggs from that, and then the fish go back into the lake. Brookville is our walleye broodstock lake, and all of the districts assist with that process. And we did have a very successful year in our walleye collection this year and our muskie collection. We also do a lot of public outreach events, fishing derbies, boat and travel show, school groups, showing people kind of what resources are out there. We also do quite a few lake renovations. This might be the lake has an undesirable species like gizzard shad, or a lot of times now we have our reservoirs are aging, the infrastructure is aging. So several of the projects that Andy and Ethan will talk about The dams need repair. The easiest way and safest way to do that is actually drain the lake. This allows us to kind of restart those lakes and really create some top-notch fisheries from those. So we do several of those over the last couple of years. We've been able to do several of those renovations. And from all this too, we also make regulation and rule proposals and review those proposals to make, fishing better and protect our resources. We do have a lot of really cool websites that you may not be familiar with. Obviously, our landing page is the fishing homepage. You can get to that via this QR code. From that, these other websites can be found. Our status and trends, which we'll talk about more. That's kind of our standardized community sampling that we do. We also have an aquatic habitat website that houses all of the locations of our structures. You can download the GPS files to upload them to your depth finder, pictures of all the structures. Fishing reports, this is while we're out sampling, we take record of water temperature, kind of what fish are active during the spawning. It's kind of a what's biting information website. We also have depth maps for a lot of our habitat work. We will go out and measure depths for the lake. Those maps are available also to you. I think there's over 200 lakes on there. So some really cool bathymetric maps. And then every survey that we conduct, we write a report on. Those are available for the public on our Fish Survey Reports website. So this is our main landing page. Things I want to cover is our fish stocking dashboard. We have some really cool dashboards. Also our reports website and status and trends survey. I will mention also that I mentioned before we work on public waters. We do take phone calls from the public about private ponds, but we do not do site visits on those because it would we would never have time to do anything else. But we do have on this what to know at the very bottom. We have a great website on private pond management that provides resources to private pond owners. So our fish stocking website, we have this really cool interactive dashboard that allows you to search by water body, county, species, year, and it filters that. So if you are interested in looking at all of our walleye stockings, you could just sort by walleye, and it shows where they are across the state. Like I mentioned, every time we do a survey, we write a report. Those are available on our Fish and Wildlife and Fisheries Report website. These are in PDF form, and so you can click on the PDF, pull up the lake that you're interested in. You can search this also by lake, by year. And so all that information is available for you there if you like a more traditional paper report. If you're more into playing around with data, we do have our status and trends dashboard. So like I mentioned, status and trends, this is our standardized sampling where we're looking at a fish community. We're using multiple sampling gears to look at all the fish in the lake. And we have this really interactive dashboard where you can search. So the first part here, there's a tab for glacial lake species, reservoir species, and then individual lake surveys. So you can search here by whatever species you're interested in. So if you want to know, what all the lakes where we had bluegill in glacial lakes, you just select bluegill, all those lakes pop up, and you can see all those lakes listed here and the number collected. Now say you're interested in just larger size bluegill, you can use the slider task here to search and say, I just want to see glacial lakes where bluegill over 8 inches were collected. And you can see that list there of the water bodies now changes. And so you can really target, kind of species you're interested in and sizes that you're interested in. We have the same thing for reservoirs. Once again, and also if you're interested in more a lake that's close to home or a lake you're interested in, you can go to this third tab for individual survey results. And you can click a lake that you're interested in, Kegel's Mill, and it gives you our most recent survey data from that lake. And once again, from that, you can also search by species. So I mentioned we do a lot of survey work spread over the year. Ethan and Andy have been out this spring doing crappie surveys, walleye surveys, and largemouth bass surveys. They've also been busy with broodstock collection for muskie and walleye. And then on certain lakes, we actually do vegetation control. So Dogwood Lake is a good example. We have a lot of vegetation out there. And so we do selective vegetation treatment out there to improve access and allow bass to kind of find those bluegill and make better fishing out there to kind of control those smaller bluegill. Now we're transitioning into our summer period, which some days it feels like summer, some days not. But this is our status and trends time. So this is once again our community surveys. We collect fish using a variety of techniques, which include night electrofishing. Seen here in the photo, we have two people on front. Electricity is injected into the water. The fish are stunned. We scoop them up, measure, weigh them, take some aging structures, return them back to the lake. We also use trap nets. These are box nets that have a fence that goes to the shore. So fish are moving along the shoreline. They run into that fence and then they move into this box net where they cannot escape. And so we go collect those, measure, weigh, take aging structures, and once again, return the fish to the lake. And those are really effective for our panfish like bluegill, crappie, and red ear. And then finally, we use a gill net. This is kind of like a volleyball net that we put in the water. Fish swim into it and get tangled up. This is most effective for our channel catfish, gizzard shad, yellow perch, species like that. And so we use a suite of those to make sure we're collecting all the fish in the system. And so we have a set schedule, set of lakes we're doing every year. Biologists also have the discretion to go do additional surveys. If we're getting questions or comments about a lake, they can also go and do that survey work as well. We also do vegetation monitoring, which goes out and collecting samples to get species, occurrence, and abundance in all the lakes that we are doing our status and trends on. In the fall, we do river and stream work. That's because generally lake or river levels are lower and it's a safer time to sample those. And then we do targeted surveys for hybrid striped bass and walleye to look at our stocking successes from previous years. In the winter, it's kind of our downtime. That's where we're analyzing and writing all the reports that you can find on our website, repairing and purchasing equipment, working on our stocking requests based on what we've seen throughout the year, and then attending meetings. There's a lot of like boat and travel show, things like that occur during the winter. One thing we're always cognizant of as we're moving lake to lake is aquatic invasive species. We do have a lot of carp in the southern part of the state, the invasive carp. We do have an invasive carp program, and they work on our removal program and research. You can find information about that program here. We also ask if you're seeing carp in areas, we do ask that you report those. And you can do that through this survey link, or if you're out and see something suspicious, you can always email our AIS program. And we always are looking for help on educating people, which leads into our volunteer opportunities. Obviously, we have hundreds of lakes in the state of Indiana, and we can't get to them all. So we are always looking for help. We can do that through what's called the Great Lakes Landing Blitz, where people are at boat ramps, educating people on invasive species, making sure they're cleaning their boat. One thing that we do a lot of work in the South is our aquatic habitat structure builds. We have volunteer build days where we ask volunteers to come help us assemble these structures so we can get them out in the lake in a really short amount of time. Andy's done quite a few of these for Patoka Lake. And Ethan will be planning one for Monroe coming up. And we're always looking for people, to volunteer at our hatcheries and state properties. And you can check out our volunteer opportunities at our volunteer website. I've mentioned aquatic habitat several times because we have a lot of Corps of Engineers reservoirs in the south, large reservoirs that have either been devoid of habitat or the habitat that was there when the lakes were built has degraded. And so we've done 19 projects across the state. If you go to our website, it's interactive. You can click on one of these dots. It'll show you a picture of what type of habitat we've used. And you can also download those GPS coordinates to put on your fish finder or on your cell phone. And so we've done a host of projects across the state using different kinds of structures, and all that information can be found on our website. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our new District 5 biologist, Ethan, and he can talk more about the resources in District 5.
Thank you, Sandy. So as Sandy said, my name is Ethan Minkowski. I am the brand new District 5 fisheries biologist. District 5 is kind of located in the southern half. It's kind of more south central Indiana. I am currently overseeing water resources in 17 different counties. These include Monroe, Lawrence, Greene, Bartholomew. It's a fairly large area. So within that large area, we have a lot of aquatic resources available. Kind of as Sandy touched on, we do have a number of reservoirs in here. My district has Lake Monroe, the largest reservoir in the state at over 10,000 acres. But there are also a couple other large reservoirs in here. There is Dogwood and West Boggs, a couple smaller ones, including Griffey and Starve Hollow. We also have a lot of strip pits in here. The Duggar unit has several. Green Sullivan State Forest has a lot of them. A lot of the state properties in this district have strip pits that are available to fish. I also fill out stocking requests and manage small ponds in a number of towns and cities in District 5, including mainly Terre Haute and Bloomington. And we also do have a number of streams within District 5. The White is kind of the most prominent one, but we also have Salt Creek, Flat Rock, and Muscatatuck. So just a couple of highlights that what's going on in this district this year and kind of over the next couple of years. As Sandy mentioned, we have a lake renovation coming up at Green Valley over by Terre Haute. That'll be coming up kind of within the next couple of years. We're still kind of in the initial planning stages for that one. We've also done a couple, as Sandy mentioned, a couple species specific surveys. We did a survey for muskie over on Bass Lake at Green Sullivan. We did a survey for walleye out on Lake Monroe. And just this past Tuesday, I finished up a largemouth bass survey over on West Boggs. And then kind of coming up later on this year, we have a habitat build day for Lake Monroe. Lake Monroe had a big project back in 2019. And so this is kind of a new project that we're starting. And then kind of an ongoing research within District 5 is we have the 9-inch black crappie size limit out on Dogwood Lake. We are still currently monitoring that, and we will be doing so for pretty much the foreseeable future. So kind of to get back on structures and stuff, as I mentioned, we'll be doing a build day on Lake Monroe. The previous one was in 2019. We'll be putting more out later this year. As Sandy had mentioned, you can go and you can look on our reservoir, our fish habitat page, and it'll show you all of these structures. When we place these structures, we always take a GPS coordinate. That way you can go on and you can pretty much know exactly where these structures are at. So you can go out there and you can put this stuff on your phone, or you can put it on your fish finder. So you can basically go out there with your boat and basically pull right up to these structures. So for fish stockings, one thing I did omit from this list is District 5. There is a lot of channel catfish stockings. A large portion of the stockings I do year to year are channel catfish. So I've kind of omitted those to this, mostly just to show kind of the other species that do get stocked in here. We do, in District 5, we stock hybrid striped bass, walleye, muskie, saugeye, which is a hybrid species between walleye and sauger, as well as rainbow trout. The hybrid striped bass we stock mainly in Monroe. The walleye we stock in Monroe. Muskie we stock out at Duck and Bass Lake at Green Sullivan. The saugeye we stock at Sullivan Lake. And then Spring Mill Lake at Spring Mill State Park, it's channel catfish and rainbow trout. So for kind of overview of the survey schedule, last year, the previous biologist retired. So the only survey that was done last year was the crappie survey out at West Boggs. This year, I have a whole plate of surveys that I will be performing. As previously mentioned, the Bass Lake Muskie survey, Monroe and West Boggs were already completed. I have 4 lakes that I'll be doing this May for our summer S&T work, and then I will be returning to Monroe this fall for walleye and hybrid striped bass. And there's all the dates on here. If you go back real quick, Sandy. So all the dates on here are just kind of are approximate. They're all just kind of subject to change. So before I kind of get into the details on this graph, I'm going to go a quick overview as we will be seeing quite a few graphs like this, both in my presentation and in Andy's. So just these graphs kind of run from highest to lowest catch rate. The data for these graphs are derived from our summer fisheries, our S&T surveys. So we do targeted bass surveys in the spring, as Sandy mentioned, but they are not represented in this graph. So there are probably a couple lakes on here that you will look at and you'll probably wonder that you think that doesn't seem right. Just know that they don't incorporate our spring data where we tend to see a lot larger fish. So just going off of the data that is currently in here, again, to give you a quick overview, the keys for this graph, the light green portion of each column represents the catch rate of largemouth bass less than 14 inches as a percent. The dark forest green represents 14 to 18 inches, and the gray is any bass over 18 inches. So just looking at this graph, if you were just wanting to go someplace where you could just catch fish all day, every day, or you want to take your kids to go and you're pretty much all guaranteed to catch fish, someplace like Montgomery City, Old Tempers, Ogle, or Kickapoo would be a real good place to go. If you want more like quality size fish, Shakamak is a good lake to go to. Brush Creek is another good one. Cypress is another good one. And I will mention West Boggs, even though it doesn't look like it. We just wrapped up a survey out there. We caught a lot of really nice bass, including multiple fish in the 5.25 pound range. So there's some real good bass opportunities out there if you're looking for to target large fish. So this is kind of taking that same data and putting it on a map. You can just kind of see where all these lakes are scattered across District 5. You have West Boggs kind of in the southwest corner. You have Green Valley kind of up near Terre Haute. That's another one that is, just a reminder, that's that lake that we're planning on doing a renovation on. And then you have other places like Starve Hollow in the south, Brush Creek and Old Timber all the way kind of towards the east, and then Griffey and Monroe kind of in the center. So this is for our bluegill and red ear. Again, this graph is set up pretty much the same way. Light green for fish less than 6 inches, forest green for the 6 to 8 inch range, and then gray for those fish that are over 8 inches. And again, it's kind of set up from highest to lowest catch rate. So again, if you're going out, you just want to catch fish, basically, with every cast. A good place for that would be Reservoir 26, Monroe, Lemon, those kind of places. If you wanted more if you wanted larger bodied fish, Green Valley is another good one. West Boggs is a good one. Delaney Park is a good place to go. So, and then moving on to another panfish species, crappie. Again, graphs oriented the same way. Light to gray is less than 8 inches, or light green, excuse me. Forest green is between 8 and 10 inches, and then gray is that over 10-inch mark. If you just want to catch a lot of crappie, Monroe is a good place to go. If you want more size, Dogwood is up there, and Starve Hollow is up there as well. So here's a map. This map combines our bluegill, red ear, and crappies to kind of go a quick overview of the key. The black triangle is bluegill and red ear sunfish. The circle is crappie, and the square represents both species. So Dogwood, West Boggs, Lemon have both species in them. Monroe and Thousand Island have crappie, and then Green Valley, Ogle Lake have the bluegill and red ear sunfish. So then kind of moving on to a couple other species. I know this is an extremely busy map right here, but this is all of District 5's catfish stocking locations. This is kind of why I omitted catfish from the stocking graph a couple slides back. As you can see, there is a lot of places all across the district where we stock channel catfish. But we also have a fair number of places where we have really good naturally reproducing catfish. For a quick reference, any rectangles on here is for flatheads, triangles are channels, and then circles are both. As you can kind of tell, we don't really have any flathead specific places. Mostly it's channel cats, though you can, if you are after both species, Montgomery, Monroe, and Lemon do have both. So those are your options if you kind of want a little bit of a mixed catfish bag. Next up are walleye and saugeye. Monroe is my main spot stocking place for walleye, and then Sullivan is my only lake for saugeye. So those are kind of your main two choices. Hybrid striped bass and for muskies, kind of the same story. Monroe is the only place and only lake in my district where I stock hybrid striped bass. And then both of my muskie lakes are located in Duck and Bass Lake. That is at the Duggar unit at Green Sullivan State Forest. And we just did a survey out there. That lake we were starting to look at in terms of the muskie, but there are fish out there, and there's also other really good multi-species that I will touch on later in this slide or in this presentation. So trout stockings, I have 4 locations that receive spring rainbow trout stockings. Those are Maple Avenue up at Terre Haute, Midland and Airline Lakes, both at Green Sullivan, and then Spring Mill State Park in Spring Mill. Those stockings occur in the spring, typically around March every year. So if you're looking to go out for some trout and you're in this part of the state, you can always keep an eye on those water bodies. You can always call and ask me when they're going in. And it's usually, I'll tell you usually as soon as I know, towards kind of like the end of March. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the opportunities that are lakes in this district, but there are a lot of other opportunities within District 5. I've kind of not really touched a whole lot on the rivers and streams in District 5. And kind of as Sandy touched on, a lot of the real big rivers are the purview of the big rivers biologists. So I don't do too much work on those, but we do have other rivers. As I said, we have Salt Creek, which feeds into and runs out of Monroe. There's usually the tailwaters for Salt Creek is pretty good for walleye and hybrid striped bass. There's also the White River, which is really good, smallmouth and catfish river. And then just, again, you're kind of spoiled for choice in terms of lakes as well as rivers across District 5. If you want kind of more direction, you can always call and ask me, and I will try and point you in the right direction. So kind of with that, here is kind of we do have a map. This map is taken from our Where to Fish website. It is a very good resource. If you're ever looking to try and plan a fishing trip, it's a map of all of our DNR access sites. So it'll provide you a location, a bunch of information, like whether or not they have a boat ramp, if there's shoreline access, if they're on lakes, it'll provide information like if there's maybe motor restrictions or if there's entry fees. And then just kind of give a real quick rundown of the 3 lakes that I've been to this year. Lake Monroe, as I mentioned, it gets annual striped bass stockings, and we just did a walleye survey out there. Didn't get a whole lot of walleye, but we got some really big walleye. It's also got really good largemouth bass and channel catfish, and this was the lake that a couple years ago the new state record smallmouth bass was caught out of. Dogwood Lake has really good panfish opportunities. Dogwood is also, as I mentioned earlier, has the 9-inch crappie limit on there that we are monitoring consistently. And then Bass Lake, we just did the annual muskie survey out there. The real stars of the show, however, were black crappie. We caught a lot of them in the 13 to 15-inch range, including a couple pushing the 3-pound mark. And there's also some really good largemouth bass and channel catfish in there. I will also add West Boggs here as well. Again, is really good for largemouth bass. Not only do we get a lot of largemouth bass, but anglers are getting them. A lot of the bass tournaments have reported that first place anglers are bringing in 25 pounds of fish. So if you really want to go and get some nice largemouth, West Boggs is currently on fire right now. So with that, you can put your kind of questions in the chat. You can save them towards the end of the presentation, but I am going to turn over to my counterpart at District 6, Andy.
Thanks, Ethan. My name's Andy Beltman. I'm the District 6 fish biologist for the Indiana DNR. In District 6, there are 18 counties. Pretty much, if you stack 2 counties high, it's the entire part that borders the Ohio River in southern Indiana. In District 6, just like District 5, there's a diverse amount of water bodies that support our public fisheries, and those range from reservoirs, strip pits, streams, small ponds. Important to note here, while we do have big rivers in the district, Ohio River, Wabash River, White River, and Patoka River, that is not under my duties for managing. That is our big rivers biologist, Phil Kakmar. So some lakes to mention here under our reservoirs, Patoka Lake's the largest in District 6. It's 8,800 acres. Second largest is Hardy Lake. And we have a few state parks within the district. Deem Lake State Park, Lincoln State Park. John Hayes Lakes is in Salem, Indiana. And then we have a large chunk of Hoosier National Forest here where we have a lot of lakes in the Hoosier Hills. Strip pits in District 6 are mainly located at Sugar Ridge Fish and Wildlife Area and Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area. And Sandy did an excellent job earlier explaining what the strip pits are. And those are remnants from the old mining operations. And they do offer a very unique fishing opportunity in that it almost feels like you're in a mountain lake somewhere. A couple streams to mention for District 6 are the Blue River and Indian Creek that have good smallmouth and rock bass fishing opportunities. And then we also have small ponds in more urban areas. A couple big urban areas to mention are Evansville and New Albany. Some highlights. So this is basically just some of the work we've done in the past few years. Lincoln State Park fish renovation. So Lincoln State Park last year had to draw the lake down so that they could repair the dam. It was having a leak problem. We've done fish habitat enhancement work at Patoka Lake and Sugar Ridge Fish and Wildlife Area. And a few ongoing research projects we have in District 6 are Patoka Lake Fish Habitat Enhancement, Patoka Lake Indiana Bass Federation bass stocking, and then we have a 9-inch minimum length limit at Hardy Lake that we're evaluating. And I'm going to hit on those here in a second. So to get into the aquatic habitat management, a little more detail, Patoka Lake, we've been doing habitat enhancement out there since 2019. To date, we've had a total of 499 artificial structures that we've put in the lake. We have felled over 350 shoreline trees thanks to our Division of State Parks. And there are many partners to mention here for which this would not have been even remotely possible or imaginable. We have many partners, fishing organizations, local businesses, and volunteers that have assisted with this habitat project out at Patoka Lake. And as Sandy mentioned, this is being done in an effort to supplement what's been lost in this reservoir through the years. At Sugar Ridge Fish and Wildlife Area, we kind of have a twofold approach to habitat management. We treat overabundant aquatic vegetation to open up some shoreline fishing access, as well as try to improve the fisheries in those areas where there's overabundant vegetation. And we have placed recycled Christmas trees in the lake thanks to department stores like Lowe's out of Evansville. Last to mention here, it kind of goes with habitat, kind of not, but it's the Lincoln State Park renovation. This was done to rid the lake of a nuisance species, gizzard shad, which typically has a negative impact on bluegill growth and bass recruitment. So then you see less bass out there. So after we renovate this lake, we will restock it this fall and it should improve the fishery. Just to touch on one of the research projects we're doing in the district, that's the bass stocking that was done by the Indiana Bass Federation. They purchased all these fish, and these fish averaged about 7.5 inches. A total of 3,200 were stocked back in 2020, and all these fish were stocked with pit tags. So pit tags are the same kind of tag that are put in your pets and dogs and cats so that you can identify them. And just like with dogs and cats, these tags have individual numbers so we could identify individual fish. So these fish were stocked in 2020, and we've been evaluating this ever since. And the purpose of this was to try to increase the overall numbers in the population at Patoka Lake for the anglers to catch. The way we evaluated this and are still evaluating this is through a twofold approach with nighttime electrofishing surveys and going to tournament weigh-ins. So we've been going out and doing electrofishing surveys since 2021 and have done it annually since. And in 2021, we collected 4 from that stocking. In 2022, we collected 1 from that stocking. And then ever since, we haven't seen any more in our electrofishing surveys. And that's including this year. Like Sandy said, I'm going to be going out tonight, and we've already gone out 2 previous nights and have yet to see any from the 2020 stocking this year. Tournaments, we started going to those in 2024. And the first year we went was good. We saw some fish from the 2020 stocking. So we saw a total of 5 fish from the 2020 stockings in 2024 tournament weigh-ins. And then last year, we unfortunately didn't see any from the 2020 stockings. So in total, there's been roughly 800 fish weighed in at these tournaments the past couple years. And of those, 5 have been from the 2020 stockings that IBF paid for. So going along with fish stockings, we got a few to mention here for District 6. We stock a lot of channel catfish in the district, just like District 5, and there's not enough room on this slide to fit all those stockings. So here I just chose to highlight some of the other species we stock: walleye, hybrid striped bass, rainbow trout, and muskie. And I realize I forgot to put on there sawguy. It's a hybrid of sauger and walleye. So we stock walleye in Patoka Lake and Patoka Lake only. The hybrid striped bass are stocked in Patoka and Hardy Lake. We stock rainbow trout in Garden Park, Johnson Park, and Oak Lake. And then the only muskie fishery in District 6 is Loon Pit, which is located at Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area. This here shows our survey schedule from last year and this year, and it mirrors what Sandy said earlier on about kind of our rough sampling schedule, and that in the spring we do a crappie survey, a bass survey, and then late spring, summer, we do community surveys, and in the fall we do stream surveys and some panfish surveys as well. Specifically in District 6, we do a panfish survey at Hardy Lake, and in Patoka Lake, we do a walleye hybrid striped bass survey every year. So diving into the data now, this is Ethan already went through this on his end, but it's the same setup as what he described, where we have the lakes at each one of these bars. Moving from the left to the right, you're going from lakes that have high numbers of bass, and to the right, you're going to lakes with low numbers of bass. The size of bass are denoted by the different colors. So the light green are for bass less than 14 inches. The dark green is for bass from 14 inches to 18 inches, and the bass greater than 18 inches are denoted in the gray. So if you're somebody who wants to go out and catch a large number of bass, you would go to Buffalo Trace. If you're more interested in size and are okay with not catching as many possibly, you would want to go to Crisney. And it's important to mention here, this is from our summer surveys, not from our spring surveys. And so if you see a lake on here that you think, well, that lake normally has bigger fish in it, but they didn't see it, it is because we don't have our spring data in here when we typically get those bigger fish. This map here actually does take into consideration our spring targeted sampling in addition to the data I just shared with you, as well as angler opinion. So these are our best bass lakes on the map. Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area, any pit on that area is great bass fishing. Patoka Lake is easily the #1 bass fishery in District 6. And then a couple other ones are John Hay and Scottsburg. Moving on to bluegill red ear, this graph is set up the same way. The lakes to the left have more bluegill red ear, and the lakes to the right have lower numbers of bluegill red ear. So the sizes are denoted again the same way with colors. The smaller fish in the light green, so bluegill red ear less than 6 inches, and dark green bluegill red ear from 6 to 8 inches, and bluegill red ear are greater than 8 inches are denoted by the gray. So in this example, you'd want to probably fish Saddle Lake if you were interested in numbers and didn't really care about size. If you're more after bigger fish, you would want to go to Springs Valley, Hardy Lake, Celinda, Huntingburg City, just for a few examples. Crappie, this is from our targeted crappie surveys in the spring. Again, the graph's set up the same way. The higher number of crappie to the left, the lower number of crappie to the right. And then the sizes are denoted the same way. The small fish in the light green, crappie less than 8 inches are in light green. Crappie from 8 to 10 inches are in dark green, and crappie greater than 10 inches are in the gray. So for this, if you just want to catch a high number of crappie, don't maybe necessarily care about catching big crappie, Huntingburg Lake will be your go-to. If you want to sacrifice numbers for having a chance at catching more bigger fish, Hovey Lake would be the go-to spot. This is the map to denote those best panfish lakes, and there's a lot going on here. We've got some different shapes here to denote the different species. So the triangles denote bluegill, red ear sunfish best lakes. The circles denote the crappie, and the squares denote both. And just to mention a few, Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area, Ferdinand State Forest, Patoka Lake, Springs, any of the Hoosier National Forest lakes, and then out east we got Elk Creek, John Hay, and Deem. This map here, a lot going on, just like District 5. We do a lot of channel catfish stockings in the district. Too many to rattle off here quickly. So if you're interested in seeing your closest channel catfish stocking, please go check out our dashboard that's been mentioned a couple times earlier. And if you are looking to have a good chance at catching channel catfish, any one of these are going to be a good go-to spot. Some natural reproducing catfish fisheries are denoted here on this map. The squares are for our flathead lakes, the triangles are for our channel catfish lakes, and the circles are for where they overlap. So just to mention a couple here where they overlap would be Patoka Lake, Hardy Lake. A couple lakes where there's flatheads but not channel cats are Celinda and Old Howland. And one of these we do stock. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but these are spots you'd want to go for some natural reproducing catfish. That flathead in the picture, that one came from Patoka. Patoka's got some really big flatheads in it. So if you're interested in big flatheads, Patoka's your spot. These are our two walleye saugeye stockings. So Patoka, we stock walleye, and in Huntingburg Lake, we stock saugeye. Both of these lakes produce really large fish of both species. You're probably not going to maybe necessarily limit out, but you are going to catch a few good keepers. This map shows our hybrid striped bass and muskie fisheries. So our hybrid striped bass are stocked in Patoka Lake and in Hardy Lake. And then our only muskie fishery in District 6 is located at Loon Pit and Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area. The trout stockings done in District 6 are at 3 different locations: Garvin Park, Oak Lake, Johnson Lake. These stockings are done every fall. Some other opportunities in District 6 that I didn't get to are Blue River and Indian Creek fisheries. If you're interested in chasing smallmouth and rock bass, they're very abundant in both of these river systems, and some large ones to boot. A couple other areas that are worth mentioning are Sugar Ridge and Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife Area. These areas have ample shoreline fishing opportunities as well as a lot of boat ramps and quality panfish and largemouth opportunities there. And this is kind of my favorite slide here. I'm going to finish up on what I refer to as the hot lakes. So this is where fishing is really good right now. So Huntingburg Lake, if you are somebody who has fished this lake and hasn't been visited in the last like 5 years, you need to get back to it. So this lake used to be dominated by overabundant bluegill and crappie, all very small. That's improved since then. Crappie are very abundant, over 9 inches now. Bluegill red ear are abundant over 8 inches. There's quality size largemouth and channel catfish there, and it's our main saugeye stocking here in the south. Patoka Lake is absolutely on fire right now. Our hybrid striped bass fishery and is what we would call in its honeymoon phase. It's not going to get any better over the next couple of years. And that is because it's a new stocking. We just started stocking it in 2014. So it's in the best shape it's going to be. Our walleye fishery there has abundant fish over 9 inches. You're probably, again, not going to limit out, but your chance at, I said 9 inches, I apologize. Your chance at catching a fish over 9 pounds is great at Patoka Lake. As far as bass fishing goes, the first big 2 tournaments of the season, it took 20 plus pounds to finish in the top 10, and it's just absolutely incredible right now when you compare it to previous years. Lincoln State Park is one to be looking out for. Again, this is the one we renovated, and we're going to be restocking it this fall. So come about 2030, you're going to have abundant bluegill red ear over 8 inches and largemouth bass over 14 inches. And with that, I thank everybody who's jumped on here today. If you have any follow-up questions that we don't cover today, or just want to talk to me more about opportunities in District 6, please give me a call.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it. We will go ahead and jump into some question and answer, but just a reminder, both Ethan and Andy's contact information is posted in the chat, so you can reference that and reach out to them as needed. All right, so let's jump in here. Let's see. Ethan, it sounds like you're new to your district. Is there a lake you're particularly excited to get out on for fishing or for surveying this year?
Not exactly. I'm still in the phase where I'm trying to figure out kind of all my water bodies, though. In terms of where I'm really going to, Monroe kind of has my attention right now. Really trying to work on the tailwaters, work on the shoreline fishing. I don't really have a boat, so I'm basically shorebound. So just trying to work out all the shoreline access and fishing opportunities on Lake Monroe currently.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much for that. And Andy, you talked a lot about the different areas. It sounds like there's a abundant pan fishing opportunities in your district, but is there any specific areas that really stick out for taking young children or families with young children to panfish?
Yeah, so we have a lot of urban fishing opportunities and some parks. So like Evansville area, Garvin Lake Park is a great spot to go check out for taking your family to fish to. One other one off the top of my head, and this is because I live in Jasper, Indiana. Parklands Park in Jasper, Indiana is a great spot to take your family fishing. Very easy access to shoreline fishing with a nice dock and fishing pier and bathrooms right around the corner. Any of our urban fishing areas are great to visit if you want to take the family to go out and have a chance at catching some fish.
Awesome, thank you. And let's see, this is for both of you. Why are there so many catfish stockings for both of the southern districts?
I could go first on that. The quick and simple answer off the bat is we're really good at raising channel catfish. We are really good at it. You look at some surrounding states and we raise a lot more than some of the surrounding states do. And channel catfish, they don't really do very well naturally reproducing on their own in some of these smaller water bodies. There's two things going against them, and that's limited spawning habitat. They need a cavity to nest in. And so in these smaller ponds, there's not a lot of like hollowed logs or muskrat holes or anything like that from the spawn in. But where they do spawn, then they have to deal with the predators. So bass and bluegill, they do a number on catfish eggs and fry, to the point that in these small water bodies, these catfish just can't successfully self-sustain themselves. So we stock these channel catfish in these areas to offer an additional opportunity for anglers to catch something that's fun, can get to bigger sizes, relatively inexpensive to fish for, and fun to catch. And they eat great. And we bring these to the areas, or especially urban areas, close to where a lot of folks like to live, because they are easy to catch, they're fun to catch, and inexpensive to target.
It's a great explanation. Thanks, Andy. Ethan, did you have anything to add to that for your district?
No, Andy pretty much covered it. Channel cats, we do a very good job raising them. Very popular game fish, tastes very good. So Andy basically did a real good job covering all of it.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see here. So Ethan, you talked a little bit about structures that are being built and that have been built in your area and an upcoming project you've got going on. Can you tell us about why we add fish structure? So what's the purpose of having structure in the water for fish?
So the purpose of having, especially in regards to our reservoirs, which is what most of our structures are concerned with, main thing is our reservoirs are old. And as reservoirs age, their habitat quality goes down. When they first fill up, they have a lot of trees and a lot of brush that provides real good structure for fish. Over time, those trees slowly decay. They drop their branches. Eventually, they're standing stumps, which still provide good cover for fish. But then eventually those stumps rot away, they break off, and then you're kind of just left really with no structure whatsoever that holds fish. So we go in and we add these artificial structures and to kind of mimic that natural material that these reservoirs have lost in order to continue provide mimic habitat for fish, for cover, for nursery habitat. These structures, they attract all sorts of fish. So bass, crappie, bluegill, catfish are all drawn to these structures. So again, we mostly put these in just because our reservoirs are aging. They're kind of losing the natural habitat that they've had. And so this kind of augments it in order to continue providing good fishing habitat and opportunities for anglers.
Great explanation, Ethan. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And speaking of structure, Andy, you mentioned that you have 499 structures went in. Is there anything special planned for the 500th structure?
Well, other than me being extremely excited about it, and maybe not many other people even really caring, but yes, I don't really have anything special planned. But it just so happens that we were lucky to hear from Mossback Fish Habitat Structure Company that they're going to donate the last one to us to make for the 500th. So we've been recently lucky enough to work closely with them. The Indiana Bass Nation here, their chapter, acquired a habitat grant for buying some of these mossback structures to put out. And the mossback company matched the purchase. So we got an additional package donated to us from mossback. And then we were able to match it with our Division of Fish and Wildlife money. And so a part of that project led us to the 499. And Mossback said, we'll donate your last one to make the 500th. So pretty cool that it worked out that way. I don't know what I'm going to do to celebrate it, but I'm very excited.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Andy. And it sounds like getting that structure donated was a big win. And just super excited to hear that that's an upcoming milestone that we're going to be passing. Ethan, can you tell us a little bit about how the fish survey schedule is determined? So what factors go into figuring out when you survey and what for?
So we basically, all of our reservoirs and all of our lakes are kind of on a rotation. So kind of every year, the places we go to changes a little bit. So depending, and some lakes do get visited more than others. If we have lakes that kind of have a known issue or there is something that we are looking at, like for example, the Dogwood Lake, the 9-inch crappie size limit, we will go back to that lake fairly often. Other lakes that the fishery is kind of more stable, we may not go back to as much. But generally, our lakes are kind of on usually kind of a 5 to 10 year cycle, where basically about every 5 or 10 years or so, we will return to those lakes and do a survey. It also kind of depends on what the survey is. In some cases, we may visit the lakes multiple years in a row just because one year they have a species specific survey and the next year they just have a community survey. And then for the species specific ones, that's mostly just based off of water temperature. So the reason we do the crappie, the bass, and the muskies before everything else is just water temp, try and get them while they're shallow, get the big fish while they're present. So that's kind of why they are done earlier in the year than the summer community surveys.
Awesome, that makes sense. Thank you. And let's see here. I think we have time for one more question. So I'll throw this one to Andy. Can you tell us, I believe this is your district, so let me know if not. But Andy, why are hybrid striped bass and walleye stocked in Monroe and Patoka, but largemouth bass are not?
Yeah, so Monroe's not my district, but the answer covers both of the reasons behind this. So we stock hybrid striped bass and walleye in both of these reservoirs because we want to try to control gizzard shad numbers. So when we see gizzard shad show up in a reservoir, what happens is bluegill growth declines and largemouth bass recruitment, basically the number of bass in the population, declines. And obviously, bluegill anglers aren't very happy when they see their bluegills go from 8+ inches to 6 inches. And then bass anglers aren't happy when they see their numbers of bass go from being high to being low. So it's not an ideal situation that we find ourselves in when gizzard shad take off in a reservoir environment. So normally our go-to method for trying to tackle this problem is to start the lake over. And that's what I mentioned earlier about Lincoln Park, drain it and get all the fish out of there so that you can restock it and try to keep gizzard shad out because it's a little easier to manage. So we stock these hybrid striped bass and walleye in Monroe and Patoka because we want to try to knock the shad numbers down, but we obviously can't drain Monroe and Patoka and restock it because that's just too large of right. So that's the reason we stock hybrid striped bass and walleye to try to control the gizzard shad so that we can help the bass out and help the bluegill out. That's the idea. Now, the reason we don't stock largemouth bass is because while they will survive, the fish you stock, you will get a percentage of them survive. They don't actually increase the overall number of bass in that population. And that's the reason why we just don't stock largemouth bass throughout the state. And that pretty much applies for all of our natural reproducing fish populations. We just generally don't stock them because they do pretty fine on their own. And if there's anything that's impacting their numbers, more than likely we need to do something else. So like at Patoka, that's why we're trying to put more habitat out there because habitat's been degraded through the years. And so more often than not, there's some other factor that's impacting the bass numbers, and that's what probably needs to be tackled first before you start entertaining to stock more bass.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it. That makes sense to me. And with that, we have unfortunately run out of time. So if anybody continues to have questions or has additional questions, please go ahead and reach out to Ethan or Andy or find the district biologist in your area. That district map is located on our website, so you can kind of search out based on what district you live in to find out who would be your content expert for the region. And so with that, thank you so much to our presenters and to our audience for taking the time to be out here tonight. I really appreciate it. I definitely learn a lot anytime we do these presentations and enjoy them a lot. So I hope everybody else has as well. And a reminder that there will be a recording up on of this presentation within the next couple of weeks. So if you'd like to refresh your memory or share it with anybody, you could do that. That'll be on the Indiana DNR YouTube channel. And good night. Thanks so much.